Hello everyone. On my craft table today I have balls of cotton thread. They are size 10 and I have dyed these threads myself with tea. This is the original color, which is a kind of off-white. This is little darker strength tea, and this is lighter, and this one is variegated. So I couldn't film the dyeing process. So perhaps some other time I can put up that video how to dye the yarn. For now I am going to start crocheting by using the darker color first. So, and let me keep the others away. So you must be wondering why I have two balls of yarn together. I'm going to be holding two strands together and working because the yarn by itself is very thin and soft and does not have any structure or body. So I'm going to be holding them together. I'm using a steel crochet hook size 2 mm. This is my favorite crochet hook for many projects. So I love the way the thread slides on this hook. So I'm beginning to make the flower by starting with the magic ring. This is the magic ring, and begin by doing 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. So 3 chains and a double crochet, 2 double crochet. So we are going to be making 12 double crochets inside the ring. So you have to count 12, including the chain 3 that we made in the beginning. So let us finish the 12 DCs and see how we have to join the ring. I have completed 12 DCs inside the magic ring, and I'm pulling the tail here. This is the best part of the magic ring. You pull the tail and all the stitches come together and make a perfect circle. So you see we have the circle now, and join it to the third chain that we made in the beginning. 1, 2, 3. So before joining, I want to tell you, you have to join only in the front loop. So let me show you what's a front loop and a back loop. The picture's coming up. Here you see, this is the front loop and this is the back loop. So in this design, see the front and the back. So in this flower, you have to pay attention to the front loop and back loop because we are going to be working alternatively in them. So now to attach this or to join the circle, you are going to use the front loop only of the chain 3 that you made in the beginning. So excuse that sound, background sound. There's some traffic on the road. So I've joined it only with on the front loop. So make chain 2 and see, this is where you have to start the next stitch also in the front loop only, and I am making a double crochet or a DC. 1 DC, 2 DC, and chains again, 1, 2, 2 chain again, slip stitch into the same front loop. So we are working all these stitches in the front loop of that joining chain. So this is the first petal that you will get. We have made 1 petal like this, and we are going to make 12 petals all around this circle in the same way, working only in the front loop. So again, slip stitch into the next front loop, chain 2, 2 DC into the same front loop. I'm just checking if I'm working only in the front loop, because the back loop will appear for you at the back there. So this is 1 DC, 2 DC, and chain 2 again, slip stitch into the same front loop. So the second petal is done now. So we'll continue like this all around the circle and get 12 petals of this kind. I'm doing the same thing once again. Okay, a little speed there, and I've completed 3 petals of such. I'm showing you the method once again, because in the beginning round it is a little difficult. So here you see, this is how it should look for you now. Okay, so we have completed how many petals? So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have completed 11 petals. We'll do the last petal together. I'm doing the last petal together along with you. Again, slip stitch to the next front loop. Make 2 DCs. This is the second DC. And chain 2 again, slip stitch into the same stitch, and now you have completed 12 petals, and we have to join it to the first stitch that you made in order to complete this round. So slip stitch to the first stitch that you see there, and that completes the first petal round. Okay, now I'll have to show you how the back appears. See here at the back, you can see the back loops that you did not work into. Let me bring this tail thread to the front so you can see the back loops clearly. See, you can see here the loops that we did not work into appear around the flower like this. So these are the loops into which you will have to work this round. So you will be actually be working at the back of the work now. The petals are in the front and you are going to be working at the back. So start by inserting your needle. So take some time to adjust yourself, because we'll be working at the back and then it could be quite tricky for you. So first find out where your stitches are before you begin. So this is the back loop, or these are the loops that you will be working into. So make sure of that before you work, because these stitches can be a little not visible in the so easily. So let's begin. I'm taking some time to adjust and to make sure that I'm working in the right place. So insert your needle in the loop that you see there and make a slip stitch. And after making a slip stitch, just make one chain. This one chain is not counted towards the stitch count at all. So after making one chain, I'm making a DC and another DC in the same back loop. So that is 2 DCs in the back loop. And this is the stitch pattern for this row. So 2 DCs into each of the back loops that you see there. So there will be a total of 12 back loops, and if you do 2 DCs in each of them, you should be getting 24 DCs in this round. So take your time and do the stitches correctly here, because this is the base for the next row of petals for us. Okay, just taking a look at the petals and how the base for the next petal row is forming. Here you see, this is how it will look at the back for you. And work all around that, and you must be getting 24 double crochets at the end of your round. Okay, so it looks nice and flat here, and the base is ready for us to start the next row. Okay, again join it to the first DC that you made there. You can join under both loops, but when you begin the row you have to work only in the front loop. So we joined it with a slip stitch. Now from now, whatever you are going to do, you are going to work only in the front loop of the stitches that you made there. Start by making 2 chains. See, this is the front loop, and that's where your stitches should be placed. See the front loop here? Yeah. So you work only in the front loops because we need the back loops to do the next row. So that's why you have to be very careful about that. So made 2 chains now, and making a DC in the same chain. One DC in the next stitch, chain 2, and slip stitch in the same stitch. So once again I'm going through that. If the first petal was not clear, slip stitch into the next front loop, chain 2, 1 DC into the same front loop as the chain 2, 1 DC into the next front loop, and chain 2 and slip stitch into the same. So you have made the second petal now. So the petal making continues like this: chain 2, 1 DC in one loop, and chain 1 DC and chain 2 in the next front loop. Okay, just speeding it up so that we get to the end of this row. So make petals like this all around. So by now you know that you should be having 12 petals now. So you will be having 12 petals at the end of this row, and we have to close this round to begin the next round. So to close it, slip stitch into the first stitch that you made. So that ends this petal row. And make a chain. And after this row I am going to change the color of the thread. So I am going to cut off this thread and bring in the next lighter color. So this was the darker shade of the tea dyed yarn. The lighter shade is going to come in now for the next petal. And before you proceed, always I would like to weave in the tails, and here you can see the back loops visible there. So that those are the loops that you are going to be working into now. I've brought in the next color of thread, which is a little shade lighter than what I used just now. Again, I'm going to be holding 2 strands together. So holding 2 strands together can be a little cumbersome or a little clumsy in the beginning, but as you work you will get used to that. So in the beginning it takes some time, and do it slowly so that you get it right. Make a slip stitch and we'll begin the next round and the back loops only. So you can begin this round wherever you want, because there's no placement for this. So just begin by attaching your new thread. So I have attached with single crochet there. I am making a chain 1. Chain 2. So chain 2 and the single crochet there equals 1 DC. I am making another DC into the same stitch. So that's 2 DCs in one stitch. 1 DC into the next stitch. By stitch I mean the back loops. So there's 2 in one and 1 in the next. So this is the pattern for this. 2 DCs in the next loop, that's the next back loop, and 1 DC into the next back loop. So it alternates like this: 2 1 2 1. So this is the base row for the petals for the next round. So we are forming the base here. So 2 DCs into the same back loop, and in the next stitch we will be making 1 DC into the back loop. That's 2, and next it will be 1. So at the end of the round, here we have finished it, and if you count you will have 36 DCs together totally. So there should be 36 all around, and then you are ready to attach it or join it with a slip stitch. So join it with a slip stitch. And now we are ready to do the next row of petals. So in the next row of petals we have to be working only in the front loops. So the petals are always worked only in the front loops, and the base is worked in the back loops. So this is a front loop round. So in the front loop now, chain 2, one DC in the same front loop, and in the next loop or in the next stitch we are going to do a triple crochet. Okay, so take yarn 2 times on your needle and make a triple crochet. So 2 times around your needle, 2 triple crochets in the same stitch. In the next front loop, 1 double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch in the same stitch. Okay, so that's the first petal that we are making. Now on to the next petal. Slip stitch into the next front loop, chain 2, 1 DC into the same front loop, 2 triple crochets into the next front loop. That's 1 and 2. In the next front loop it will be 1 double crochet, chain 2 and slip stitch into the same stitch. Okay, so that forms the second petal. See, these petals are a little bigger, that's why we make triple crochets there. Okay, so we have come now to the end of this row. See, this is how, and I have already woven in all the tail threads because it comes in the way, and this is how your work will look at the end of this round. And now we have just left with joining it now. So I have made 2 chains. I have yet to make the slip stitch into the same front loop. And now slip stitch into the first stitch. That completes the third petal row, and by now you know we have to work only in the back loops only now. So you see the back loops now are very well demarcated as you proceed with your work, and it's now more clear for you to start working your stitches inside that now. So to begin that again, we will slip stitch into the back loop that you see directly below your needle, slip stitch, chain 2, 2 DC in the same back loop, 1, 2, then 1 DC into the next stitch and another DC into the next stitch. Okay, so that's 2 DCs in the same stitch and 1 DC each in the next 2 stitches. Once again, so make sure that you have the yarns together. Once again, 2 DCs in the same stitch followed by 1 DC each on the next 2. So that's 1 and that's 2. Okay, this is the stitch pattern for this round. At the end of the round you should be having 48 DCs. So count, and if you have anything lesser or more, you have to adjust, go back and check your work again. So there must be 48 DCs here. And join again to the first stitch that you made there, slip stitch. So preferably you slip stitch into the front loop or under both the loops, but when you begin to work you have to work in the front loop. So start by making chain 2 and 1 DC in the same stitch in the front loops. Two triple crochets in the next front loop, that's 1 triple crochet and another triple crochet in the same stitch. And since this is a bigger petal, we'll be making another 2 triple crochets in the next front loop. So that's 1 and another triple crochet into the same front loop. So we have made totally 4 triple crochets, 2 in each stitch. See, that's a triple crochet, 2 triple crochets and 2 triple crochets. So what we have made here is 2 DCs, 2 triple crochets, 2 triple crochets. Now in the next stitch again we are going to be making 1 DC, chain 2 and slip stitch into the same stitch. Once again we'll go through the steps for the petal. Slip stitch into your stitch, make chain 2, 1 DC into the same stitch, two triple crochets in the next stitch, another 2 triple crochets in the next stitch. By stitch I mean the front loop, and 1 DC into the next, and 2 chains, slip stitch into the same front loop. So that's the stitch pattern for the petals. So this is a bigger petal with 4 triple crochets in between. Okay, the urge is always there to set the flowers right away. Yeah, now I finish the petals and come to the end where I have to join. Okay, so 2 more single crochet chains remaining, 2 chain and slip stitch into the same stitch, and now time to attach it to the first stitch. So make a slip stitch and attach your petals. Okay, so since I worked 2 rows of petals with the lighter color, I am going to cut the thread and attach the next color here. So you can see my urge to flatten out things even before I finish my work. So that's crazy. I don't know if it's crazy, but I like to see the finished work always. Before even I finish my work. So I brought in the next color, that is the original off-white color of the thread, and we are going to be working in the back loops only. So now after the petal round we'll be making the base round for the next row of petals. So make a slip stitch in the new thread that you have picked up, and like I told you, you can either attach it where you stopped or you can attach it to any of the back loops that you see there. So by attaching I mean making a slip stitch into one of the you can make a slip stitch or you can even make a single crochet. So just I'm taking some time to do it carefully. Okay, so there I have made a single crochet attachment, and pull your tail thread and make sure that your stitch is tight there, and chain 2, so that makes it 1 DC. Okay, another DC into the same place where you attached, so that's 2 DCs, followed by 1 DC into the next stitch, another DC into the next stitch, and the third DC also into the next stitch. So that is 3 DCs into the next 3 stitches, and again 2 DCs into the next stitch. So this is the stitch pattern for this: 2 DCs in one stitch followed by 1 DC in each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2 and 3. So 3 DCs into 3 different stitches, not in the same. See, take a look here. Okay, I have done the rest of the DCs off camera, and see, this is your work at the back now, where I have woven in all the tails beforehand, and you can see the beautiful flowers forming. So after end of the row here, you should be having 60 double crochets. Okay, so the number must be 60, so make sure you have 60. To begin with, as you know, now you have to work only in the front loop. So begin, after joining, begin by making chain 2s, making a chain 2, sorry, not 2, and 1 DC into the same stitch. And this is a bigger petal, so we will be making 2 triple crochets into each of the next 3 stitches. So you can either work, because this is the last row, you can either work under both the stitches, or you can work only in the front loop also, because we don't need the back loops anymore, so you can do that. But I am working in the front loop only again, just to make sure, show you how it will appear. So 2 triple crochet in the next 3 stitches. Okay, this is the last set of 2, so 1 and 2, followed by 1 DC into the next stitch and chain 2, slip stitch into the same stitch. Like I told you, this row you can work under both the stitches, or you can work only in the front loop. If you are going to extend this flower, you will work only into the front loop. If you don't want to, then you can do it under both the loops. So the first petal, big petal, has formed. So I've done the rest of the petals off camera, and I have come to the end of this row, where we only have to now so I'm just taking it out because I find there's some slack there. So let me go back to the last 2 chains. Yeah, this is the last 2 chains. Slip stitch into the same stitch, and now time to join. So make a slip stitch in the first stitch that you have made in this row, slip stitch, so that's the attachment. Make a chain, pull your thread out and cut your thread. Before you cut your thread, as usual, you will have to check if all your work is correct before you snip it off. Okay, so that completes the flower for now, but if you need to extend it, you will have to again work the base row at the back and continue the flower like this. But of course the stitch counts will be a little different. So flatten out or fan out your petals like this, because they are all curled up, and you see my urge to set things right. Here you go. Okay, let me place it on something darker for you to see the effect of the flowers, but I can hardly see the color change of the light and the dark shades of the yarn that I've used. Well, nevertheless. So time to weave in our ends. I have woven in the tails of all the other rounds before off camera, but I'm showing you only this one now. So thread in the tail on a needle and work invisible stitches, and make sure that you weave in back and forth so that your threads are well hidden and will stay in place. Okay, that's the flower I've made with my own dyed yarns. Here you see the dark, the light, and then there's the original beige color or the off-white. So if you have worked only in the front loops, you will have the back loops where you can still work more rows. Otherwise your back will look like this. So what you have to do is you have to increase the number of the triple crochets for the next petal. So in this row we made sets of 3. So in the coming rows you will be making sets of 4 triple crochets, and as usual the beginning and the ending will be chain 2 and a DC. So that's for another day. So I'm done. Thank you for watching. Do share, like and subscribe if you like my work.